According to Lanzar, his employer was the United States Navy. He says he and other government employees would gather near EG&G, fly to Groom Lake, then a very few people would get into a bus with blacked out or no windows and drive to S4. When you get off the bus, what do you see?
It's a very interesting building. It's got a slope of probably about 30 degrees, which are hangar doors. And it has textured paint on it, but it looks like sand. It's made to look like the side of the mountain that it's in, whether it's to disguise it from satellite photographs or what.
He says he was never told exactly what he'd be working on, but figured it had something to do with advanced propulsion. On his first day, he was told to read a series of briefings and immediately realized how advanced the propulsion was.
The power source is an antimatter reactor. They run gravity amplifiers. There's actually two parts to the drive mechanism. It's a bizarre technology. There's no physical hookup between any of the systems in there. They use gravity as a wave, using waveguides, almost like microwaves.
It took a while, Lanzar says, before he actually saw one of the flying discs. However, there were hints everywhere.
Right. They had a poster, and it looked like a commercial poster almost, like it was lithographed, and you could buy it at a Kmart or something. But they were all over the place, and it had the disc that I coined the term the sport model. Was lifted off the ground about 3 feet at area S4 on the dry lake there, and the caption on the bottom said, "They're here." And those are just all over the place.
Checking out Lanzar's credentials proved to be a difficult task. He says he earned degrees in physics and electronics, but the schools we contacted say they've never heard of him. He also said he worked as a physicist at Los Alamos National Lab, where he experimented with one of the world's largest particle beam accelerators, a half-mile-long behemoth capable of generating 700 million volts. Los Alamos officials told us they had no records of a Robert Lanzar ever working there. They were either mistaken or were lying. A 1982 phone book from the lab lists Lanzar right there among the other scientists and technicians. A 1982 clipping from the Los Alamos newspaper profiled Lanzar and his interest in jet cars. It, too, mentioned his employment at the lab as a physicist. We called Los Alamos again. An exasperated official told us he still had no records on Lanzar. EG&G, which is where Lanzar says he was interviewed for the job at S4, also has no records. It's as if someone has made him disappear.
Well, they're trying to make me a non-person.
Explain. You called where?
Well, the schools that I went to, the hospital that I was born at, past job, and essentially nothing comes up with my name in it. He called right after and he said, "Do you have any idea what we're going to do to you now?" And I said, "Well, no." And he hung up the phone.
Lanzar's story is, by any standards, fantastic. He says he's telling it in order to protect himself. He says he was hired to work at an area called S4, which is a few miles south of Groom Lake. At S4, he says, are flying saucers, antimatter reactors, and other working examples of technology that is seemingly beyond human capabilities.
Right. This came from somewhere else. I mean, as bizarre as that is to believe, but I mean, it's there. I saw it. I know what the current state of the art is in physics, and it can't be done.
Later, he got to see the real thing.
When I was let in, it was the first time I saw the sport model in the hangar sitting down, and I was told they could have walked me in the front door, but they purposely wanted to walk me by it. I was told not to say anything and just keep my eyes forward and walk past the disc into the office area. And I did, and as we went by it, I just kind of stuck my hands on it just to run it alongside the thing, and that was about the smallest time. After that, I got to see it actually lift off the ground and operate.
But you also, in between that, you saw more than one.
Yeah. The hangars are all connected together, and there are large bay doors between each one. And there were 9 total that I saw, each one being different. Like they had the assortment pack. Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs, that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
As Las Vegas celebrates its centennial, another Nevada institution is marking a milestone this month. The world's best-known secret military base, Area 51, turns 50 years old. The site at Groom Dry Lake in Lincoln County has been the location for the most classified military programs in the world. People who worked there were sworn to secrecy, but now they're talking. To who else? George Knapp of the I-Team here with their story.
Hey,
George.
we haven't done this one in a while.
No.
Area 51 wasn't supposed to be a permanent base. It was built in 1955 for the U-2 spy plane, but when that work was finished, other so-called black projects were sent there. And today it's a multi-billion-dollar facility that essentially cannot be duplicated. The people who've worked there over the years are justifiably proud of their role in protecting our national security, but they've never been able to talk about it, not to their spouses, not even to each other. Tonight we're going to hear from the people who were there and the secrets they've kept for so long. Buses with blacked-out windows, cameras that scan for any movement, sensors buried in the dirt, armed choppers that patrol the skies, ominous signs that warn of deadly force. The secrecy that's long been the trademark of Area 51 is as pronounced today as it's ever been. Whatever's going on inside, no one's going to talk about it. For decades, the government would not admit the existence of Area 51. Its code name disappeared from maps. Employees couldn't tell their own spouses where they worked.
No one knew about it. No, you never heard of Groom Lake in those days, or Area 51.
Electrical whiz T.D. Barnes was working for NASA in the 60s when he first focused on Area 51. He knew from radar signatures that something very fast was flying around out there. Barnes was recruited by the CIA to join the Groom Lake team, although this kind of teamwork was pretty unusual.
You never talked about each other's jobs. There's some of the guys I worked with out there, flew up there, stayed all week with them. We played on the lake all weekend. To this day, I don't know what their specialty was. We did not ask.
If Area 51 had DNA, secrecy would be woven into it.
2 years before Gary Powers was shot down,
Lockheed genius Kelly Johnson needed an out-of-the-way place to test his spindly spy plane, the U-2, and the dry bed of Groom Lake seemed perfect. It was far from prying eyes, but still close to the already secure Nevada test site. In 1955, when the first U-2 was rolled out at Groom, the base, then known as Watertown, consisted of only a few buildings and hangars. For Francis Gary Powers and the other U-2 pilots and personnel, Area 51 was no garden spot, but the work was vital. The U-2 enabled America to find out what our adversaries were up to. Even before Powers' U-2 was shot down over Russia, a successor to the plane was in the pipeline at Lockheed's Skunk Works, a family of airplanes that would be known as Blackbirds.
These things are the greatest airplanes ever built, and still are. To think that 40 years ago, and it's still the world's fastest.
Test pilot Bob Gilliland was chosen by Lockheed as the first man to fly the SR-71, one version of the Blackbird, and the fastest plane to ever fly. When the U-2s moved out of Groom Lake, the Blackbirds moved in. They could travel faster than Mach 3, but at such speeds, the planes and the pilots got mighty warm.
In a round number, it's about an 800-degree Fahrenheit airplane. And so a self-cleaning oven is, I understand it's 425, and a soldering iron's about 550. So you can see it's a lot harder than that.
And they said, well, we want to know if you want to volunteer to do something. I said, well, what am I going to do? He said, we can't tell you. I said, okay, I volunteer.
Military pilot Dennis Sullivan was recruited by the CIA to work at Groom Lake in the early 60s and to pilot the A-12, an early Blackbird. For the spy pilots, the Cold War seemed pretty hot. Various enemies were constantly trying to shoot them down, and just flying the planes was dangerous enough.
The guy up in the CIA headquarters told me one time, he said, you know, when we looked at this program when we started, we figured we were going to lose about 20% of you guys. And while we didn't get shot down or anything, that's just about exactly what we did.
There were other dangers. Area 51 was only a few miles from Ground Zero at the Nevada test site. The base was often showered with radioactive fallout from atomic tests. In later years, workers were exposed to toxic chemicals because of regular open-pit burning at Groom Lake. Despite the risks, those who worked at Area 51 are proud of their roles, proud and tight-lipped.
If something's going on out there, they don't want anyone to know about it. They're not going to know about it. It's not going to happen.
There are some festivities planned for the end of this month in Rachel, Nevada, up near Area 51 to mark the 50th anniversary of the base, although I'm told the base has already held its own little shindig. The men we interviewed are part of an organization called the Roadrunners, made up of former Area 51 workers and headed by Roger Anderson. The Roadrunners have helped to get a lot of information about their projects declassified, which is why they were able to talk to me at all. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out some of the links on our website. Tomorrow night at 11 o'clock, we'll look at Area 51's other claim to fame. You know it, you love it, UFOs.
You know, they seem very low-key, but It's got to be kind of frustrating to have done something so historic and never be recognized.
Sure, and you know, they can talk about the project, but you notice they don't really talk about the base. I mean, even after all this time and all that's been written about it.
Fantastic. Thank you, George.
Sure.